Stop for a second and think about this. There will come a day when people look back at 2025 and say, wait, you could have actually bought Bitcoin for under 200k and you didn't? That day is coming, and when it does, today's prices will look like a joke. But here's the thing that most people don't realize. You and I might be part of the very last generation that still has the chance to buy Bitcoin cheap. This is not hype, this is not speculation, this is simply math, history and adoption playing out in real time. Because Bitcoin is not just another investment. It's not just another stock or another startup. It's a once in a lifetime and once in a history monetary network with a fixed limited supply. And as adoption spreads from individuals to corporations to institutions and eventually to entire governments, the window to accumulate meaningful amounts at these levels is slamming shut. So in this video I'm going to share with you exactly why Bitcoin is still cheap today, even if it doesn't feel like it. The historical patterns that prove this opportunity is vanishing, and why we are likely the last generation that will ever see Bitcoin at prices that ordinary people can afford. So stick with me until the end, because once you've seen the math, the psychology and the adoption curve, you'll realize how small this window really is. Before we dive in, I need to be crystal clear. This video is not financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy, sell or do anything. I'm simply sharing my research history and personal perspective on Bitcoin. Remember, investing is risky and you can lose money. Never invest more than you can afford to lose, and always do your own research or speak to a professional before making any financial decision. Alright, let's dive into it. Why does Bitcoin still feels expensive, but it isn't? Let's address the elephant in the room. If you are new to Bitcoin, or if you have been around for a few years, today's prices already feel high. You look at Bitcoin over 100k and you think, man, I've missed it. I should have bought at $3,000 in 2019. I should have bought at 20k in 2020. I should have bought at 60k before the bull run, the last bull run. The voice in your head keeps saying you're late. But here is the truth. Bitcoin is still cheap. I truly believe that. Why? Because price alone doesn't tell the whole story. You have to look at the adoption. Only 2 to 3% of the world truly owns Bitcoin. Institutions are just starting to allocate. Governments are only beginning to experiment. And global awareness is still in the early stages. That means that we are in the first chapters of adoption, and if you study every disruptive technology in history, the internet, mobile phones, electricity, the early stages always feels expensive to the few who are paying attention. But compared to the future, they were dirt cheap. Well, a couple examples. Think about Amazon stock. People thought it was insanely expensive for $50 in 1999. Today it's worth thousands. The same is true for Bitcoin. Yes, it feels pricey compared to yesterday, but compared to tomorrow, it's still cheap. Now, history always makes early sellers look foolish. Let's rewind. In 2011, Bitcoin hit $30. People said it was a bubble. It crashed back down. Those who sold thought they were smart. In 2013, Bitcoin hit 1k. People said it was unsustainable. It dropped to $200. Sellers celebrated until 4 years later it hit $20,000. In 2017, Bitcoin hit 20k once again, but the idea of too expensive was deafening. But by 2021, it hit $69,000. Now in 2025, Bitcoin is sitting well above 100k. And guess what people are still saying? Too expensive. I've missed it. Every cycle the same thing happens. People anchor to old prices and assume they missed the boat. But every cycle the floor rises permanently higher. Here's the brutal truth. In the future, today's prices will look cheap. Just like $1,000 looked cheap in 2017, just 20k looked cheap in 2021, just like 60k looks cheap today. Now let's talk about why you and I might be part of the last generation that still has access to cheap Bitcoin. It comes down to three forces. One, institutional demand. For years, Bitcoin was the retail story. Nerds, cyberpunks and a handful of curious investors. But now BlackRock, the biggest asset manager in the world, has launched a Bitcoin ETF and lots of money is flowing in it every day. Fidelity, Vanguard and other giants are piling in. Hedge funds are allocating billions of dollars. When trillions of dollars of institutional capital pour into an asset with a fixed supply, the price doesn't just drift upwards, it explodes. Now, the second force is government adoption. Well, classic story, El Salvador started the trend, but they won't be the last. Other nations are facing currency crisis, are watching closely. When governments beginning adding Bitcoin to their reserves, demand will go parabolic. And remember, there are only 21 million coins. There are already about 56 million millionaires in the world. That means not every millionaire can own one. Well, the third force is the halving cycles. Every 4 years, Bitcoin supply issuance is cut into half. Less new Bitcoin enters the market, but demands keep growing. This creates a supply shock that historically launches the next bull cycle. And with each halving, the available supply for ordinary people shrinks dramatically. That's why I say we are the last generation with the ability to accumulate the prices that feel even remotely affordable. Future generations won't get this chance. Okay, so let's run the numbers and be concrete. There are 21 million Bitcoin, but in reality only about 18.5 million are in circulation. And of those, at least 3 to 4 million are estimated to be lost forever. Gone to wallets, destroyed hard drives, forgotten keys. That means the real liquid supply is close to maybe 14-15 million coins. Now consider this, there are 8 billion people on Earth, there are 56 million millionaires, and there is trillions in institutional capital hunting for scarce assets. If Bitcoin adoption continues, owning just 0.1 BTC, 10 million Satoshis could be the difference between being rich or broke, because mathematically not everyone can own that much. And when you look at it through that lens, suddenly today's prices don't look expensive at all. They look like a clearance sale compared to what's coming. Here's the saddest part, most people will miss this opportunity. Not because they didn't hear about Bitcoin, not because they didn't understand the math, but because the psychology. They'll say, I'll wait for the dip. When it comes, they'll be too scared to buy. They'll say it's a little too expensive right now. And in the future they wish they bought. They'll sell too early, patting themselves on the back for making a small profit and then watch helplessly as the price keeps climbing. Regret is the most powerful emotion in investing, and history shows us that one thing is crystal clear. The biggest regret in Bitcoin has always been selling too soon or never buying at all. So let's pause and redefine the word cheap. In 2011, $30 Bitcoin felt cheap. In 2013, 1k Bitcoin felt insane. 2017, 20k Bitcoin felt unreachable. In 2021, 69k Bitcoin felt like the end of the line. But looking back, every single one of those points was cheap compared to today. So when we say cheap, we don't mean $1 Bitcoin. We mean relative to its future value. Today's prices are still a bargain. That's why we are the last generation who can accumulate at levels that will one day look tiny. So let me share what I'm personally doing. I treat Bitcoin as a long-term position, not a trade, not a quick flip, and definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme. I measure wealth in sats, not dollars, because the dollar is a melting ice cube. Bitcoin is the opposite. It's a rising tide of scarcity. I don't try to time the market. I don't try to outsmart the cycles. I simply accumulate and hold because I know my future self will thank me. For me, the line in the sand is at least 0.1 BTC. That's the minimum. That's the stake I refuse to let go of because I believe in a future that's where 0.1 is life-changing. Moving on and talking about the future we are heading towards. Here is what I see coming. Institutions are keeping to buy. Governments join in. Retail panics buys at higher levels and supply is constantly shrinking to nothing. In that future, the idea of buying Bitcoin for even under 200k or 500k will sound insane. People wish they had the chance we have today. And they will call us lucky, but luck has nothing to do with it. It's simply a matter of seeing the truth early and acting on it before it's obvious to everyone else. So here is the final question I would like to ask you. When your kids, your grandkids ask you about Bitcoin, what story will you tell them? Will you say, I heard about it, I saw the prices, but thought it was far too expensive, so I never bought? Or will you say, I saw the opportunity, I knew we were the last generations who could still buy in cheap and I held on? Because make no mistake, this moment right now I think will never come again. We are the last generation that can still buy Bitcoin cheap. The only question is, what will you do with that knowledge?